You figured it out on a $2,600 salary. Not a raise. Not a second job. Not some side hustle that changed everything. The same paycheck. The same apartment. The same Tuesday morning commute. And somewhere inside that, quietly, without anyone noticing, something shifted. The money stopped running out before the month did. The anxiety that lived in your chest every time you opened your bank app started going quiet. Not because the number got bigger, because you finally understood what the number actually meant. Most people spend their entire working life believing the salary is the problem. Chase a better title. Wait for the next raise. Tell themselves that when the number changes, the feeling changes with it. You used to believe that too. You got a raise 11 months ago. You were still sitting in your car in the parking garage at 7:14 in the morning, staring at $312, wondering where it all went. That morning, something clicked. And what clicked had nothing to do with earning more. It had everything to do with what happens in the first 48 hours after every paycheck lands. That's it. That's the whole thing. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Most people do one of two things when they're here. They wait. They tell themselves the next raise fixes it. The promotion fixes it. The better job fixes it. And they wait for years, sometimes decades, for a number that keeps moving further away. Or they try to cut everything at once, no eating out, no spending, no anything, and they hold it together for 11 days and then something breaks and the whole month collapses and they feel worse than before they tried. You tried both. Neither worked. What actually worked was smaller than you expected. And it started on a Sunday you almost spent doing nothing. You are 28 years old and you have been here before. Not this garage, not this exact Tuesday, but this exact moment, engine off, phone in hand, looking at a number that doesn't make sense given how hard you've been working. $312, 9 days in. And the thing that's making it worse right now is that you got a raise 11 months ago. You remember exactly how it felt when HR sent the email. $280 more a month. You sat at your desk and thought, this is it. This is the one that finally changes things. It didn't change anything. The $280 disappeared the same way everything else disappears. Into the same grocery runs, the same gas station stops, the same birthday dinners you said yes to because you didn't want to explain why you were saying no. More money, same hole. And sitting here right now in this parking garage, you realize something that genuinely unsettles you. You don't actually know where the money goes. Not precisely, not line by line. You have a general feeling, rent, bills, food, life. But if someone sat down with you right now and asked you to account for the last $2,600 you earned, you couldn't do it. Not really. That thought sits with you the whole elevator ride up. It's still there when you sit down at your desk. It doesn't leave you all day. That night you open your bank app for the first time not to check the balance, but to actually read it. What you find changes the next 3 years of your life. You scroll back 30 days. It takes maybe 20 minutes. And the thing you're looking for isn't some obvious mistake. There's no subscription you forgot about. No single stupid purchase you can point to and say, there, that's the problem. Every transaction makes sense on its own. $47 gas. Makes sense you need to get to work. $94 groceries. Makes sense you need to eat. $61 dinner with friends on the 14th. Makes sense, it was someone's birthday. $38 shoes. Makes sense, your old ones split at the sole. $23 parking downtown. Makes sense, you had somewhere to be. Every single thing makes sense. But all of them together, in the same month, on the same $2,600, that's where it breaks. You were never making bad decisions. You were making 37 separate reasonable decisions that nobody was coordinating. No one in charge. No plan. Just a month happening to you one transaction at a time. That's it. That's the entire problem. Not your salary. Not your discipline. Not some character flaw you've been carrying since your 20s. Just the absence of one person, you, deciding in advance what the money is for. So you try something. Not a budget. You've done budgets. They work until the third week when something real happens and the whole structure collapses and you feel like a failure for not being more disciplined when the real problem was the budget was too rigid for actual life. This is different. This is one move. One. The morning your next paycheck lands, before you pay a single bill, before you buy anything, before the month has a chance to start spending it for you, you transfer $75 to a savings account at a different bank. No debit card attached. No instant transfer. 2 business days to get it back. Gone. On purpose. Before the month touches it. The rest of the month is hard. You eat lunch from home 4 days a week. You say no to 2 things you'd normally say yes to, but you do not touch the $75. And on the last day of the month, for the first time in longer than you can remember, you open your bank app and the number isn't 0. It's not impressive, but it's not 0. And something about that, something about having moved first before the month feels different from anything a budget ever gave you. Month 2, you do it again. Month 3, something happens that has nothing to do with money, and it's the most important thing this whole process teaches you. Month 3, your car starts making a sound. Low. Grinding. Somewhere under the floor on a Wednesday morning when it's cold enough that you can see your breath inside the car for the first 30 seconds. You know that sound. Everyone who has ever owned an older car knows that sound. It means money. You take it to the mechanic on your lunch break. He calls you back at 2:47 p.m. The repair is $340. And here is the moment. Not the repair. The moment after you hear the number. Because 18 months ago, $340 on a Wednesday in the middle of a month where you had $312 9 days in, that was a crisis. That was 3 months of credit card interest. That was lying awake at 2 a.m. running math that never worked out. That was the specific quiet shame of being an adult who couldn't absorb something this small without going backward. This time you sit with the phone against your ear and you feel something different. You feel annoyed. That's it. Just annoyed. The way you'd feel about any inconvenience. A delayed flight. A long line at the grocery store. Not afraid. Not spiral. Just annoyed. Because you have $380 in that savings account. You cover the repair. You rebuild the fund. You don't miss a contribution. But what stays with you isn't the $340. It's the distance between who you were in that moment and who you were 18 months ago in the same moment. Same salary. Completely different experience of the same event. That is when you understand what this is actually about. It was never about saving $75 a month. It was about building enough distance between you and disaster that disaster stops feeling like disaster. That distance, that quiet, unglamorous buffer, is what people mean when they talk about building wealth on a low salary. Not millions, not passive income, not some number you hit one day and finally feel safe. Just enough margin that your life stops being one car repair away from collapse. And you built it on $2,600 a month. Without a raise. Without a side hustle. Without becoming a different person. That's what saving money on a low income actually looks like in the early stages. Not impressive. Not Instagram worthy. Just a mechanic's bill that cost $340 instead of costing you 3 months of sleep. 8 months in, your friend Marcus calls you from a parking garage, engine off, staring at his phone, and what you tell him next surprises even you. Marcus makes more than you. He always has. Better title, bigger company, $1,400 more a month than you bring home. And he is sitting in a parking garage at 7:14 in the morning staring at $247, 11 days until his next paycheck, asking you how you always seem fine. You don't tell him to make more money. You don't tell him to cut back. You don't send him a budgeting app. You tell him exactly one thing. Find out where the money goes in the first 48 hours after your paycheck lands. Not the whole month, just the first 48 hours. Because that window, those 2 days, is where your entire month gets decided without you realizing it. He goes quiet for a second. Then he says, "Nobody ever told me that." And that silence, that pause on the other end of the phone, is the moment you realize something you couldn't have articulated a year ago. You don't think like someone who doesn't have enough money anymore. You didn't decide to change how you think. You didn't read a book that rewired you. You didn't have a breakthrough moment where everything became clear. You just moved $75 before the month started. Every month, for 8 months in a row. And at some point, quietly, without announcement, the person who used to dread opening their bank app became someone who checks it calmly, adjusts if needed, and closes it without it ruining the next 3 hours. Same salary, different mind. That is the shift. That is what building wealth on a low salary actually looks like before the numbers get interesting. Not the account balance, the person you become while you're building it. One is always reacting, the other is always building. And the only difference between those two people, right now, today, on the exact salary you're earning, is what they do in the first 48 hours after every paycheck lands. Imagine it is now 3 years from that parking garage. Your salary is higher, modestly. One raise, the kind that doesn't feel like it should change anything. But your account at the end of each month looks different, not because of the raise, because for 36 months you have moved money before you spent money. You have rebuilt savings after every hit. You have made one boring, automatic decision every single payday without fail. You have $3,200 in a savings account, built from $75 a month over 3 years, growing in a high-yield savings account that quietly added to it. You have no credit card debt. Your money mindset is different. Not because someone told you to think differently, but because the system gave you evidence that you could. And when your friend texts you from a parking lot, engine off, staring at his phone, 18 days to go, you know exactly what to tell him. Not earn more. Not stop spending. Just this. Find out where the money goes in the first 48 hours. Move $75 somewhere inconvenient before you spend anything. Do it again next month. Your salary isn't what's keeping you stuck. The first 48 hours are. Change those and everything else starts to shift.